And it's now my immense pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Please give a very warm welcome to Sahej Rahal. Now, Sahej, you were part from the beginning of the world building exhibition in Düsseldorf, and we actually included also a piece of writing by Boris Magrini, who had included your work in Basel in the House for Electronic Art, where I saw it for the first time. And it's interesting because there actually is also talk about this interface and the way one encounters a game, no? Because in a way, it's of course only through a microphone that one encounters this game, which is very special. But before we talk about that, I wanted to ask you the same question I asked the two previous speakers, to just tell us a little bit how you came to video games and why video games for you are important in terms of world building.
Sorry. So, pleasure to be here. And, well, just diving in, video games are like this all-encompassing artwork, you know. I mean, I do all sorts of things like paint and make sculptures and all of that, but like with video games, you get to bring all of that together in one place without the constraints of gravity. So, yeah, that's what drew me to it. And yeah, there's this absolute autonomy that kind of video games allow you, especially if, like, you know, I mean, I make them all by myself, so, like, you know, coding, animating, all of it, and that level of autonomy, I don't think is afforded by other mediums in a certain way. I mean, no shade on other mediums, but yeah.
And then, of course, we spoke about in both previous conversations, you know, that the future can be invented with fragments from the past, how we can somehow connect to memory, to mythology, to past histories. And that also is something you do as well, and you blend it in a way with speculative futures. Can you talk about this encounter, which it's basically two seemingly opposite temporalities, which it's almost an oxymoron, you bring them together.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they sort of exist in the world around me. Like, you know, I mean, in the world that we find ourselves in, it is very much governed by myth, you know, and I don't mean this in some sort of exotic way. I mean, right from the larger narratives of, you know, nationhood and things, or being that define our lives, to very everyday kind of stories that we tell ourselves just to get through the day. Like, you know, stories are very much what kind of take us through this world, right? And yeah, I mean, video games just becomes one way of playing with them, putting them in conversation. Yeah.
Another thing which is interesting is that, of course, in a way, not only often video games evolve over time, but they're also kind of living organism, and you have been working actually on these virtual biomes, which are almost like, in a way, biological. I was actually thinking, you know, Simondon talks about this idea that it's not in cybernetics, it's about a feedback loop, but he thinks that we should go beyond that and going into an almost a biological form of medium. And this idea that the artwork is a living organism seems to be quite present. I mean, when we looked at the world building show, about a third of the exhibit were actually living organisms. How do these virtual biomes work? Because it's a whole series which you're doing, and AI also enters that.
So, like, especially the sort of worlds that I've been building, you get to interact with them and change them, essentially. So through sound, and there's another one that I'm working, which you can sort of interact with through touch. But the most sort of fleshed out way in which you sort of move these worlds, like, or embody them, is this game that I wanted to show you. So maybe I can just show the video and that kind of...
Great, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, perfect. I'm supposed to point.
You could have the video, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And just hit play.
Thank you.
(1996). Stranded in the sands of the Sahara, the archaeologist Ali Barakat chanced upon a strange pebble. Barakat's discovery had been entirely accidental, deep within southwest Egypt, where an extreme surface heating event had produced Libyan glass 28.5 million years ago. Libyan glass is a slag-like translucent material that has adorned the crest of pharaohs. It takes shape in the desert each time a meteor finds itself in the Sahara. Yet, the stone that Barakat had found was angular, dark, lustrous, and intensely fractured. It was named Hypatia, after the first woman philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician of Alexandria. What came next was a forensic test of celestial proportions. The Hypatia stone was subjected to X-ray diffraction, electron microscopy, Raman spectroscopy, and nuclear radiation. Each method sequentially eliminating cosmic suspects to the stone's origins. These findings revealed that, like most meteorites, the Hypatia stone was indeed composed of silicon and carbon. Yet the configuration of these elements in Hypatia's matrix was unlike anything that had hit the Earth before, for it contained only trace amounts of silicon and high volumes of incredibly rare carbon compounds called polyaromatic hydrocarbons, or PAH. The PAH is an elemental component of interstellar dust, far older than the birth of the Sun and its celestial neighborhood. They exist as amorphous particles, marking the very beginnings of the universe. Curiously, the dust that was found within Hypatia had solidified into a cluster of diamonds. To turn dust into diamond, in the vast absence of space, requires heat and pressure of immense proportions, a volatile measure that can be provided only by a particular kind of exploding supernova known as the 1A. The 1A occurs when two stars, having revolved about each other over eons, exhaust themselves of their celestial fire. This exhaustion in turn causes an immense gravitational pull on both ends, bringing their cosmic bodies crashing down into each other. Their final embrace, scattering stardust across space-time.
Cool. So the game's called DMT, or Distributed Mind Test, or Democratic Machine Trials, Dreaming Monsters Tonight, Dil Mera Toota. The idea of the game is it's a cooperative multiplayer game. And the way it works is, like, say you and I are playing together, we're controlling that little creature that we saw. So say you move forward and I move right, then the creature starts shuffling diagonally. And essentially we become decentralized pieces of, or thought impulses that are embodying this creature together. And one of the sort of fundamental questions that the game is trying to test is, what does it mean to be democratic on, not in the social space, but in the first instance, at the cognitive level, you know, where the first spark of thought emerges, right? Like, can we have a shared thought together? I shared this game as part of the Biennial of Moving Images in 2024, and also to like gaming conventions. And one thing that emerged is that people make their own ways of playing, you know, so the creature can perform its own, these kind of special abilities, it can, right. And then what people were doing were they were handing over paths of control to each other. So, like, someone would take on the camera, someone would take on the movement or these abilities that can perform through acts of surrender, right? Now, in order to create a kind of larger decentralized collective mind or collective agency that this creature can perform. Right, so now take this idea to democracy itself. Like, neoliberal society kind of tells us that we need to accrue agency, power for ourselves, right? Like, but then what happens when we flip that narrative and start building societies where we surrender super abilities that we have in order to create shared ground, or inhabit shared ground. That's one of the sort of fundamental ideas that the game is trying to articulate. As you saw, like, you get to free this veil and then kind of bring daylight to this world that is sort of engulfed in darkness. And the best compliment I got for the game so far is it can be great for couples therapy.
Now, when you work on such a game, because one of the things which also struck me, we did the Zoom studio visit preparing the world building show, is that actually in your studio there is a digital practice, but there is also a very physical, very analog practice. You make sculpture, you make physical installations, and you also draw. You sketch, you draw, and I always remember, in a conversation we had with Ian Chang about world building and video games, Ian said he still very often just doodles and sketches. He says just faster. He prefers it. So can you talk about this whole analog aspect of your practice? What the sculptures you make, but also the role of drawing. I mean, you did also cartoons at some point.
I do all those things. It's because of ADHD. Like, use every intensity possible. But also, drawing for me is very much thinking. I've been drawing since I remember, and also it's fun. It's the most amazing thing you can do, at least as far as I'm concerned. I think, there's nothing beats drawing. So, yeah.
And then the interdisciplinarity we addressed in these conversations. I mean, for me, this fascination that through video games, we really can go beyond the fear of pooling knowledge and bring literature together with music, together with animation, with film, etc., etc., etc. You also bring in philosophy. There is Reza Negarestani plays a role. Can you talk about how you bring the different kind of disciplines together through the video games? It's obviously also a very collaborative practice. Very often, video games are collaborative.
I know life these games, in the sense I do all of it myself. But the idea of bringing in philosophy was okay. So in DMT, it's sort of hidden away somewhere in the world. If you find it, there's a 20-minute critique of Hegel. The thing is, I can get away with things like this in a video game, right? If I start giving a 20-minute lecture on Hegel over here, everyone's going to run away. So, things like that. That's one. The second is, I think Reza Negarestani, who you mentioned, is one of the sort of foremost sort of thinkers of our time. His sort of articulation of the inhuman has incredible valence to the world that we find ourselves in today. He sort of helped me articulate these kind of weird creatures I've been building. I would highly recommend Cyclonopedia to everyone who wants their living daylight scared out of them, because
And I was in a talk in Switzerland the other day, actually, about AI, and Demis Hassabis was saying that everyone who works with technology and AI should have a philosopher in the mix. So that's why I thought it was interesting that you bring a philosopher into the mix, with video games. We're almost out of time, but two quick last questions. What's your unrealized? Can you tell us about the more about sort of unrealized projects? I know that there are many. You answered it partially, but there are many more. And then also about your favorite game or the game you spent most time with.
The game I've been playing a lot is Elden Ring, and unrealized project. So DMT, it's finished and everything, and it sort of works in a, you can play it on your laptop and all of that. I am sort of expanding on it, adding another episode to it, which throws more puzzles at the players, and then there's zombies that you need to sort of navigate around, and it's a stealth action game, it draws heavily from Metal Gear Solid and Kojima's entire world. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Big round of applause for Sahej Rahal. Thank
you.
So much. Thank you so much. Another big round of applause.